Have you ever been hunted by a memory so tormenting that you relive it every time you close your eyes? A memory so dark that it changes your personality permanently. The movie begins as we see a boy named Eric coming back from an errand. He hears his horse whimpering in pain as he sees it being caught up in a barbed wire. He tries to help his horse, who had the barbed wire on an artery on its neck. Eric uses his hand to take off the barbed wire, which cuts his hand and causes the horse to bleed to death. Eric watches around thinking his mother would come to help him. Reality hits him as his mom is drunk and asleep. Some years later, we see a girl named Shelly taking a phone call. It turns out to be her friend named Zadie. Zadie sends a video of a crime boss named Rouge to Shelly to make him pay for all his crimes. Just then, Zadie sees a woman in her house and ends the call. The woman turns out to be Miriam Rouge's right-hand man. Miriam's bodyguard takes out a syringe and injects the liquid into Zadie's neck. Shelly realizes that there was a problem and calls Zadie's boyfriend. Miriam takes Zadie's phone and sees that the video was sent to Shelly. Shelly goes outside and feels a man following him. She tries to escape and bumps into some police officers. They see drugs in her bag as they take her away. She is taken to a rehabilitation center, and we see that a grown-up Eric is also there. He follows the instructions of the psychologist, even though it's sometimes difficult for him. He sees Shelly on the day she is brought, and they make eye contact. The duo are drawn to each other, but relationships between the opposite sex is prohibited in the rehabilitation center. Rogue is seen admiring a young pianist as Miriam comes to whisper into his ears. He leaves and goes to meet Zadie. He asks Zadie the whereabouts of Shelly, but Zadie knows nothing. Rogue threatens Zadie that he could send scums to the afterlife, but they are already headed for hell. Innocents like Zadie, however, are precious offerings to his master. Rogue sends the innocent to hell in exchange for long life and power. Zadie begs for help as Rogue speaks into her ears. Her eyes turn ash as she takes a dagger. She points it at her neck and ends her own life. Shelly and Eric frequently steal glances at each other whenever they get the chance. They sit on the same table even though it is forbidden. Rogue goes to Shelly's mom and tells her that they have found the whereabouts of her daughter. In the morning, Shelly stops by Eric's room as she sees drawings of herself made by Eric. Shelly gets a visitor as she's surprised because no one knows she is there. Eric checks the visitors and deems them to be some lawyers. Shelly sees them and realizes that they are Miriam and her men. She pleads for Eric to help her as he takes her away. He helps her through a vent as he also plans to escape. Miriam and the officers come to see both trackers of Shelly and Eric taken off. Shelly and Eric manage to escape as they stop a car. They are dropped off in the city as Shelly takes them to one of her friend's apartment. They get closer to each other as they have a romantic moment on the bed. In the night, they talk about their lives as they plan to grow old together. The police find Zadie's body and immediately reports it to Miriam. Rogue is seen enjoying the plays from his pianist as Miriam comes to him. He tells her that they have to find Shelly before the video is broadcasted. This will tarnish his reputation. Shelly and Eric have fun exploring life and strengthening their bond. They write songs and Shelly starts to play an instrument. It makes her remember a repressed memory as she tells Eric that her mom used to make her play in places that are unconventional for a child. This made people get hurt because of her. Eric promises Shelly that he would never leave her. They are seen at a party. Shelly's friend comes to tell her of Zadie's murder and asks her to leave. Shelly takes Eric with her as she promises to explain everything later. They get to the apartment as Shelly's face is wrapped with a rubber. The same thing is done to Eric as they both struggle to breathe. The duo die as their souls get to the afterlife. Shelly is being pulled into the abyss as Eric is stuck in between life and death. A spirit named Kronos comes and explains things to Eric that his soul was sent here by his crow to seek justice for what happened to himself and Shelly. Eric refuses to accept what is going on as he plans to leave. He is pushed into the water as he wakes up in the real world. He sees a man in the apartment as the man calls him out. Eric comes out seeing the man to be a police officer. He trusts the officer, not knowing that the officer was one of Rogue's henchmen. The officer shoots Eric, but he gets up again. He picks up a knife, but the officer uses self-defense skills to stab Eric with the knife. Eric rises up again as he sees a fight to the end, killing the police officer. He goes outside and sees a crow leading him. He sees Shelly as she falls into the sea. He follows her as he appears in front of Kronos once again. Kronos explains that Rogue is an entity that needs to be killed from the earth, and as long as Eric's love for Shelly remains, his body will never die. He awakens in the real world as goes to his friend for a gun. He heads to Shelly's mom's place and goes to her room. He then leaves as he sees his killer. He shoots the killer and sees Miriam in a car. He tries to shoot Miriam as the bodyguard saves her. Eric finds himself in the car and is thrown away. He gets up and puts his bones back in place as he runs away. It turns out that Shelly's mom sold Shelly's soul to the devil for wealth. Rogue comes and takes Shelly's mom's soul to hell. Eric goes to Shelly's friend who warned her before she was killed. He tells Eric everything about Rogue and leaves. Eric goes to their old apartment and reminisces about the times he shared with Shelly. He sees a video on a phone showing Shelly killing her friends under the influence of Rogue's powers. He goes back to his friend who gave him the gun's place and talks about doubting his love for Shelly. Miriam's men barge into the room and kills Eric's friend. Eric fights back and is killed in the process. His soul is taken to Kronos as Kronos tell him that he has lost the power to heal because he doubted his love for Shelly. He makes a deal with Kronos to send his soul to hell instead of Shelly's. The deal will also give Eric the power to fly through the land of the dead and the living. Kronos binds his bloods with Eric's as a crow attaches itself at his back. He goes to the land of the living and kills off all his attackers. He finds out that Miriam will be at the opera and goes there. He paints his face with a black liquid as he arms himself with a knife and a gun. He kills the guards at the opera as they shoot him. He walks as only dead bodies are seen behind him. He gets to Miriam's place as she tells him where Rogue is. Eric beheads Miriam's and heads to Rogue's place. Rogue stabs Eric's stomach with a dagger from hell as he steals Eric's powers. Eric remembers Shelly as he gains his power back because of love and takes Rogue to the afterlife, taking him to hell with him before Eric goes to hell. He talks with Shelly as she refuses to go back without him. He says it's too late as he goes to hell. Shelly awakens on the night of their death as she cries because she can't meet Eric again. This is Watch Film Recaps. Stay safe.